Good evening. Tonight we're going to be running a chat session for MGF 1107, Edison State College's Liberal Arts Math course. So this is a chat session for the MGF 1107 course. The chat session topic is algebraic expressions and formulas. A variable is a letter that represents a variety of different numbers, where an algebraic expression is a combination of variables and numbers using various operations. So thinking of addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, as well as roots and radicals and powers. So x is a variable, whereas we could think of 4x minus 2 as an algebraic expression. Evaluating an expression means finding the value of the expression for a given value for the variable. So say, for instance, 4x minus 2, we let x be 3, and we go 4 times 3 is 12, subtract 2 gives us 10. Now let's talk about order of operations, which is used in all different math courses and very important. Some people think of, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, to help remember order of operations. When we talk about order of operations, the top level of importance with order of operations is grouping symbols. If we have more than one grouping symbol, we work left to right. But if they're a nested group of grouping symbols, we work from innermost out. Then the next level that's important is exponents. The third from the top level is multiplication and division. If two of these operations are in the problem, we work left to right. And the bottom level of importance is addition and subtraction. Order of operations, very important. Now, when we talk about an equation, there is an equal sign is placed between two algebraic expressions. So, for example, 4x plus 5 equals 2x minus 3 is an equation. Whereas a formula, such as area equals length times width, can be also written just using variables and write area equals L times W, or A equals L times W, And we're talking about the formula for area of a rectangle. Now, terms are those parts of an algebraic expression separated by an addition sign. So if we have 4x plus 10, 4x and 10 are terms of this algebraic expression. Now let's talk about what is a coefficient. The coefficient is the number factor of a term. So if we have 4x is the term, 4 is the coefficient because it is the number factor of the term. Whereas a numerical term is a term that is just a number or called a constant. Factors are the parts of the term being multiplied. Like terms are terms that have the same variables. They have the same exponent for the matching variables. And like terms can be added or subtracted. For example, we could say 4x plus 9x equals 13x. Or we could say 8x minus 2x equals 6x, because like terms can be added or subtracted. Now, let's talk about properties. We have what is called the commutative property for addition. And this is where we change the order. So if we have 4 plus 5, that's the same as 5 plus 4. And then we have the commutative property for multiplication. And again, this is where we change the order. So if we have 6 times 2, it's the same as 2 times 6. Then we have the associative property for addition, which is where we change the order. And this, we regroup. And so if we have 7 plus parentheses 2 plus 3, that's the same as parentheses 7 plus 2 added to 3, where we've regrouped. And then we have the associative property for multiplication. And again, we regroup. And if we have 2 times 4 times 5, that's the same as parentheses 2 times 4 times 5, where all we've done is regroup. And last we have what is called the distributive property. And this is where we distribute the outside quantity times each term inside the parentheses. So that becomes 4x plus 4 times 6. We could have more than one term in the parentheses and still distribute. The last topic for this section we're going to talk about is if we have a negative sign or subtraction sign appears outside the parentheses. So what we do is we drop the parentheses and we change the signs of every term inside the parentheses. So for example, if we have the negative sign 4x minus 5y plus 2z, this would become minus 4x plus 5y minus 2z. So all operation signs change. Now we're going to move on and talk about the next section. And this chat session topic is linear equations in one variable and proportion. And the chat and the textbook section is 6.2. Now, the highest exponent for the variable in a linear equation is 1. So if we have 4x plus 7 equals 27, the highest exponent for x in this equation is a 1. Now, solving an equation means finding the value for the variable that will make the equation a true statement. So like for 4x plus 7 equals 27, x equals 5 is a solution because 4 times 5 is 20 and 20 plus 7 is 27. Now, 2 or more equations with the same solution are called equivalent equations. They are not saying that they are the same equation. You're just saying they have the same solution. Now, let's move on and talk about addition property of equality. Let's say we're out to solve the equation x minus 7 equals 8. If we add the same number to both sides of the equation, we don't change the value of x. And so we're going to undo the subtracting of 7. We're going to add 7 to both sides, and we get x equals 15. And that was just using the addition property of equality. X equals 15 is the solution, but we solved it by adding the same number to both sides of the equation. And then we have what is called the multiplication property of equality. And this is where we multiply both sides of the equation by the same number to help us solve the equation. So, for instance, suppose we have x divided by 2 equals 3. If we multiply both sides of the equation by 2, the 2's on the left side will cancel out, and we get x is equal to 6. And we just use multiplication property of equality because we multiplied both sides of the equation by the same value. Now, if we go to solve an equation that contains fractions, solving an equation that contains fractions. First thing we do is identify the equation's lowest common denominator for all fractions in the equation. Then we multiply every term in the equation by the lowest common denominator. And last, we solve for the variable. So, for example, suppose we had 4x equals 6x plus 4, and the 4x and the 6x both had denominators. And the 4x had a denominator of 3, and the 6x had a denominator of 5. So the lowest common denominator would have been 15. So what we're going to do is multiply every term in the equation by 15. So we will do 4x times 15 equals 6x times 15 plus 4 times 15, and every term that had a denominator, you put that in, so we have that 3 and that 5, but now we can simplify and no longer have fractions. And when we do that, we get 20x equals 18x plus 60. Subtracting 18x from both sides of the equation, we get 2x equals 60. Dividing both sides by 2, we get x is equal to 30. And there's our final solution to this particular equation. And we solved an equation that contains fractions. Now, let's move on. And if you have proportions, this is two fractions set equal to each other. To solve a proportion, we do cross product. For example, if we have 40 equals 10, and the 40, the 10, both have denominators, the 40 has 10 minus x, and the 10 has x, we will do cross product, which means that the 40 gets multiplied times x, and the 10 gets multiplied by 10 minus x. And when we do that, we get 40x equals 10 minus x times 10, which gives us 40x equals 100 minus 10x. Adding 10x to both sides, we get 50x equals 100. Dividing both sides by 50, we get x equals 2. And we just solve a proportion by doing cross product, where we cross multiply. Now, some equations, when you go to solve them, have no solution, or they have an infinite number of solutions. So, equations with no solutions could be like x plus 5 equals x plus 5. We subtract x from both sides, and 4 does not equal 5. So, there is no solution. But equations with infinite number of solutions, like if we have x plus 3 plus 1 equals x plus 4, both sides are identical when we go to simplify them. And if we subtract x from both sides, we get 4 equals 4. Well, that's a true statement, and we will get an infinite number of solutions.